Hey, what's up, everybody? Scott Zlatev here, and I want to talk to you about a concept called leaving people behind you. Now, obviously this is just something that I kind of conjured up, and it basically stems from back when I first started to attain success, and it was actually started way back. It started back in my early 30s. It was actually just right after I turned 30, and I reached a point in my life where it wasn't like a midlife crisis or anything like that. I mean, I was only 30 years old, but I looked back and reflected on my life, and I had noticed that my relationships with people, where I was at in my job, I mean, just all the different things that I had, I wasn't happy with. And I asked myself, do I want the next 5 years of my life to look like that? And it was a resounding no. So I actually did something that I know a lot of people may not choose to do. I actually admitted myself into some counseling. I did some personal development stuff before that, but for whatever reason, it just wasn't enough for me at the time, and it didn't put me over that hump. And so I actually went through some counseling, and it was a profound thing that happened. It was a great counselor, by the way. She was amazing. A lot of times counselors, they put you in this spot and label you, and then you because you're labeled that, now you act according to that label. Funny thing how that works. But I was sitting there in the office, and I was waiting for my session to come up. And I grabbed a catalog. It was actually just a magazine, and I was flipping through the pages, and this one picture caught my attention. It was it was just a really profound picture. It was just beautifully done by the photographer, and there was a quote on it that said, "If you don't leave people behind you, you're not growing fast enough." And at that point, I don't know if it was just the significance of me being in that counseling office or what. But it never really hit me until later on, you see, because, it's so true. When I trace back my steps from where I was, broke to starting to have success and then just skyrocketing success, one of those success parts that I had to learn was I had to be okay with myself. I had to accept responsibility and accept the fact that, I'm a good person, and I can stand on my own 2 feet, and nobody else has to live my life. So whether you choose to be in my life or not, if you make me feel less of a person, then I just don't need you in my life. And that was the most freeing moment, and that's when I finally started to step into the person that I am today, where it was that one decision where I just said, screw it. I was just done. I was like, I had different relationships that, different associations with a lot of different people, and I love them to death. They're great people. It's just that where I was heading in my life was a lot different than what they had an idea in their mind, right? Because I was in my early 20s, and I basically everybody that I hung out with and partied with in my early 20s, I just kept carrying on, right? And so I was never growing. I always stayed stagnant. And it wasn't until I decided that I wanted to be around healthy relationships, or where I wanted to be around successful people who actually had what I wanted, and I realized I had to leave relationships behind in order to grow as a person and sever a lot of different ties. Now, to this day, some people might not agree with some of my methods, but nobody had to live my life. And it's not that you don't love them, you don't care about them, you don't wish them well, you don't wish bad things on anybody. But the fact is that their room in your life, it's not productive. It's not a good spot for you. And at least that was my outlook. And so since I severed a lot of ties with a lot of people that either made me feel inadequate, they made me feel less of a person, they made fun of me all the time, anything like that, it was difficult at the time. And now it's like if I don't feel like, if you make me feel less of a person, I have no qualms. I don't care if I've known you for 30 years. I have no qualms with cutting you out of my life completely, because that's not I don't do that to people, so I don't deserve that to happen to me. And if having you in my life means that I'm going to feel less of a person, then I just don't need to have you in my life, because I have a lot of friends and associates and counsel that I can go to for that support, that that drive, anything that I want out of my life. And if you have kids, it's really important to set a good example and have those positive mentors and relationships around you, because we always want better for our kids than what we had. And so this single concept, leaving people behind you, was one of my pinnacle moments. At the time it seemed really challenging, really difficult, and I didn't feel like I could actually go on. There were times where it was really, really hard. There was times that, I was sitting there, just, having a breakdown because I was basically all alone, right? But because I went through that and I sought out the relationships that I knew would make me a better person, I sought out the people that could be a mentor and a positive impact in my life. Now, it was a period of several years before I became the person I am today, but it was because of that instant decision that I made that I was done, and I realized that I wanted to be in a specific spot in my life, and the only way I could be there and have a significant impact not only on my life, but my daughter's life, my family's life, and society for that matter, is if I became the person that I was destined to be and that I was put on this earth for. And it wasn't until I let go of those previous relationships and those previous people that I basically outgrew, that I couldn't step into the person that I am today. So wherever you're at right now in your life, look at your relationships. You look at people that you're surrounded by. One of the things that you have to do is you have to realize that it's kind of like an analogy of I remember a story I heard one time about a crab. Okay, you take a whole big bucket full of crabs, and it's an old fisherman story. You take this big bucket of crabs, and if you fill a whole bucket full of crabs, you never have to put the lid on it. Why? Because every single crab that tries to climb out and creep up, and they're about ready to escape to freedom, the rest of the crabs pull them back down. Okay, because they don't want, they're like, oh, you're not going anywhere, and they pull you back down. Well, that's the same thing that happens with our existing relationships. We have those specific people in our lives that keep pulling us back down. Now, secretly, no, everybody won't admit it, but secretly your friends and family, they really don't want you to be successful. They might say that they want you to be successful, but typically in my experience, it's they want you to be successful in what they think you should be successful in. A lot of times. The other times, they don't want you to be successful because they're afraid that they couldn't do the same thing. And so if you were, and they don't verbalize this, but deep down, if you became successful in what you attempted to do, in their mind, it says something about them. It makes them feel like a failure because, the whole time they're saying, "Oh, you'll never be able to be successful. You'll never be able to do it." Now, there are some rare cases that some people are very genuine, but in my experience, there's a lot of people who really don't want you to be successful because then that reflects on them that, well, they couldn't do it, so now they're a failure. Be choosy about who it is that you're around and who you allow into your inner circle, into your sphere of influence, because it will affect every aspect of your life from here into the future. And you have to be, if you want to be a millionaire, if you want to be a multimillionaire, or if the money thing isn't really an issue for you, if you want to be able to do what you want to do and when you want to do it, you can't hang around with a whole bunch of people who are tied to something like a job or something like that. You can't be a mindset of freedom hanging around a bunch of people who are not free, right? So just something to kind of think of as you're going through your journey of being an entrepreneur, of being a 21st century business owner, And if that is what you choose to do, some people, might not want to, live a life of freedom. But if you choose to live a life of freedom, that's one of my first success tips that just reflecting back on my previous history, was when I severed ties and I realized that sometimes you just have to outgrow people, and you have to allow that process to happen. And just like that quote that I read in that magazine, if you're not leaving relationships behind, you're not growing fast enough. So my friends, this is Scott Zlateff. Hope you got tons of value out of this. Leave some comments, like it, share it, so that other people can experience the value too. Take care. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.